I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.
Hey, welcome to HoopSpeak Live. I'm your host, Beckley Mason, with Ethan Sherwood-Strauss and Zach Harper. We got the full complement today and a superb guest, one Kevin Arnovitz, who will explain why the Clippers are so mediocre in the last, 3 months since starting the season well. But first, it's time to jump into something really pressing and something that we have absolutely no real proof, or is there, when you pick up the loose change, the Lakers. What's going on? Is the league cheating the Lakers into the playoffs, Ethan?
Well, we've looked. I've heard a rumor. I can't endorse this rumor. It's not my rumor. I'm not. It's not. Let's clear this up. It's not so much from my head as implanted into my head from somebody else's head. And that rumor is that there is a conspiracy to get the Lakers in the playoffs. There's video evidence circulating the internet, as tweeted out by Bill Simmons in a very tongue-in-cheek manner. The Lakers getting a lot of questionable calls in it. It gun to my head. I don't believe there's a conspiracy to get the Lakers in the playoffs. I don't believe that such a thing is true. But with the league negotiating TV rights right now, probably for 2015, you have to wonder: are the Lakers too big to fail?
I love the internet because, one, it's the reason I have a job where I don't wear pants. I'm not wearing pants right now. Two, it's a place where you get moments like when Chris Duhon did the travel dance and people, it gets put to Soldier Boy, and like that's just like a great moment in internet history. But then there are moments like this where people cut together very small samples of NBA basketball and say, "Look, there's a conspiracy." No, there's just bad officiating. Like, there's a difference between a conspiracy and bad officiating. I doubt they go hand in hand right now. It's just kind of ridiculous.
I love there's some great editing in that video, and you should look it up. It's something like Lakers conspiracy, whatever. The one that is the best is when Kobe fouls Rubio at the end of the game, and then they ask him afterwards, and he says, "Oh, they never call that bleep." And then after, like the next game, Kobe doesn't get fouled, or it's like a brush foul on his arm. He starts jumping up and down, like having a tantrum about them calling that same bleep. It's very much worth watching. But it might not matter because as bad as Utah has tried to be, they still have a pretty solid inside track to hanging on. And it also might not matter because I don't think any of these teams who are going to be the 8th seed in the West are going to compete at all with whoever comes out on top in that conference.
Beckley, you're so naive. You're just so naive. You see Utah playing badly, you think they're just losing games. You think you think that bringing Gordon Hayward off the bench instead of starting him and playing 40 minutes, you think that just happens? You think somebody intends to do that when they're trying to win basketball? No. This runs far deeper than any of us know. This is orchestrated. And while it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs now, you can see the wheels in motion. It's in front of us. We just have to look at it.
You see Ethan just swayed me there. Dirk Nowitzki's beard didn't just happen. That's not just something that grows organically. That's orchestrated. That's absolutely orchestrated. This whole thing is orchestrated. Mo Williams being someone's starting point guard doesn't just happen. Like, that was league mandated. There's something to this.
But seriously, we don't think that if it's the Spurs or Thunder, any of these teams are going to put a scare in them, right?
Not a chance.
Well, what's interesting right now, this is a funny statement. in all seriousness, imagine somebody saying before the season started that the Spurs have to win some games because they don't want to see the Rockets. They want to see the Lakers. They want to duck the Rockets to see the Lakers. That would be a crazy statement before the Harden trade and even right after the Harden trade. So it's amazing that that's where we're at right now, where there's pressure on the Spurs because they could be upset by that Rockets team with the threes they shoot.
Yeah, it's amazing how big the difference between the 7th seed and the 8th seed is. I can't recall. I mean, not that I track 7 and 8 seeds, but I certainly can't recall a time when, going into the playoffs, the 1 seed would so much rather play it. I guess the flip side would be the Eastern Conference this year. If KG comes back healthy and the 7 seeded Celtics are going to be a lot better than the Bucks.
Yeah, that one's funny to me because right now people are saying that the Celtics should try not to fall to the 8th seed because he wants to face the Heat. I kind of feel like there's no plausible reason for the Celtics to win the championship. Why not play the Heat? Why not? Why not play the Heat earlier? There's no reason. Who cares? You play a bigger marquee team. There's some of that Celtics Heat dynamic, and we all watch. Why should they care? Why should a team's ultimate goal be to advance 2 rounds or to advance an extra round? Like, what's the real benefit in that?
Ethan, these are veterans in the NBA. They know when they're going to get knocked out. Vacation plans have been made. Like you don't want to have that weird week in between where you don't really know what to do with yourself, and you end up going to the club to spend time and to kill time between your vacation. And then that's when things happen. Like this is something that they need to get to that second round, so there's not a lot of time between San Luis Obispo or Malibu or somewhere where there's a beach. Like that's what's going to happen.
That is definitely not where they're going. Well, we should bring in our expert here, who knows about everything LA and especially everything Clippers, and he can put an end to these San Luis Obispo rumors and perhaps shed some light on what's going on with the actually not suddenly, mediocre Clippers. My man, Kevin Arnovitz from ESPN True Hoop.
So, what have we settled in the first 10 minutes?
Well, we settled that the Lakers are too big to fail and that the league has a conspiracy out to keep them in the playoffs for a little bit of extra revenue. And I think Twitter has settled that Vinny Del Negro is no longer a redeemed coach. He is what we thought he was. What do you think about this?
No, it reminds me actually regarding the Lakers, NPR's music critic that rated Justin Timberlake's new album "Too Big to Fail," which I thought was a really good parallel. What do I think of the Clippers? Yeah, it's the first Vinny meltdowns of spring have blossomed here in Los Angeles on April 2nd. I'm looking outside my window. And it was really chilly in the concourse after the Clippers dropped a home game to Indiana last night. You sent me the quote earlier this morning, which was, it was sort of classic Del Negroisms. It was all we can do, or all I can do, is take the guys in and out of games, which we will add to the canon of other quotes like everyone runs the same stuff. But Beckley, it's interesting because at Hoop Idea right now, one of the premises that's putting push forward is that there's too much coaching. So I guess what I'm trying to reconcile is a world where we want coaches to kind of just let the game flow, but we kind of ridicule them when they express a sentiment like, hey, we're all running the same stuff. All I can do is sub guys in or out. So that was my question to you, and I take no prejudice on either end of this, but, well, which is correct? I mean, Vinny Del Negro is the biggest genius in the world, right? I mean, that's part and parcel of what Hoop Idea is putting forward, right?
Well, I think there's a difference between what you're doing during the game and what you're doing in practice and what you're installing. I mean, Popovich doesn't have to call every single play, the Spurs run their system and it's taught off of outside of the games, and then he doesn't have to call 15 timeouts during the game to draw up a play each time because that practice and that work has already been done. When I watch the Clippers, I think what we see is a pretty profound, despite having Chris Paul, who's such a control freak, lack of attention to detail on both sides of the ball, and missed assignments and weird mismatches that crop up. And that's the sort of thing that, of course, there's a place for coaches, and coaches need to kind of, I think, encourage an open style. But I also think that it's a little bit misleading to say that what Hoop Idea is really pushing is for coaches to have hands off, period.
No, I was just screwing with you. Testing,
Thanks.
testing rhetorical metal, Beckley Mason. Want to make just keep the show honest, keep the project honest.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I mean, I talked to one NBA coach a couple of weeks ago, and who's fond of the Clippers and thinks they're a really good team and wouldn't want to coach against them. He said in a 7-game series, but worried that, quote, they have nothing to fall back on. That both offensively and defensively, he said that, whether you take away the first option or if you can just scramble the defense once. Again, if you can just, they'll give up these pick and rolls we saw last night with Paul George and David West, where the next thing you know, West was backing in Caron Butler. He's a tough guy at 6'5", but just is not going to be able to impede, what David West does, when he's 14 feet from the basket. So, I think that's kind of where the Clippers are at. I mean, what's interesting is Blake Griffin did not speak to the media for the second straight home game, kind of stormed out. Others sort of slipped out the door. When DeAndre Jordan was told that Vinny Del Negro charged that the problem was intensity, his reply was, "Oh, is that what he said, intensity? Well, then that must be it." So if you do like intrigue, if you do like conflict, this is a very interesting place to be watching a game right now.
That's a fantastic quote. That's a little like it is what it is, or saying that, if I was to say something bad about Beckley, saying Beckley's Beckley. Beckley's Beckley. That's great. I love that right there. If I'm going to go with a prime suspect in the Clippers' mediocrity or recent mediocrity, I would pick Lamar Odom. Am I right to do so? And am I right to question why he's not playing less and why DeAndre Jordan's not playing more?
The Jordan saga continues. I mean, I think, what did he get? 16 minutes last night. Really never saw the floor after the first few minutes of the second half. And as usually happens when teams aren't playing well, factions emerge. I mean, early in the season, it was sort of a luxury, but many of us wanted to see Eric Bledsoe get more minutes, and proof was the viability of the second unit. I don't think Lamar Odom per se is the problem. Actually, I kind of like him in the zone if they're going to run zone. I sort of like him there. Then again, Jordan has the length to do it as well. But I think, Odom's a particularly good zone defender, I think. But I think this runs much deeper. I mean, let me put this to you guys, because I feel like it's something that might be discussed come May. Let's say the Clippers finish with the 5. Let's say they bow out in the first round to Denver or Memphis. At what point is there an evaluation of Chris Paul and the, quote, Chris Paul system? At what point do curious and intelligent basketball fans say, hey, no one is contesting the fact that this is the best point guard in the world, but he's played with decent talent in New Orleans, though I think you could say less than elite. This roster that was assembled, we were talking contender as recently as January. Is there something intrinsic to his game or the Chris Paul system, which is very ad hoc, that prevents a guy who's a top 5 player from getting past the second round, which we just rarely see? I mean, generally speaking, a top 5 player, by the time he's been in his late 20s, has sniffed a conference final. True of Carmelo Anthony. And you can go down the list. Wade, LeBron, guys who occupied that top 5 sort of mantle. I mean, that's my question to you, and I don't have the answer. I mean, I put this to one kind of NBA, and he just thought I was insane. I mean, he's like, get the bleep out of here. But I do think it's worth at least putting it on the table.
Well, Beckley just typed in that, Chris Paul is secretly the problem, and I kind of agree and have a question that I think I'm serious. Is it at the end of games, should Jamal Crawford maybe be more of an option than just letting Chris Paul dribble for 20 seconds? And not that Chris Paul shouldn't be involved, but you need a scorer.
Crawford should be the sole option. One score flat, baby. I mean, that's it.
Yes.
You know what shouldn't be the option, though, is Chris Paul tries a bunch of stuff, or Chris Paul gives it up, then gets denied and can't get the ball back, and then he gets to Crawford with 6 seconds left, and he's 30 feet from the rim, and he's not a muscly guy. He's not just going to, ram into someone and create contact. I think when you say that they don't have anything to fall back on, I think it's because they don't have a system to fall back on, because their system is a person. And if that is your system and that gets taken away, which every team in the NBA, I mean, even LeBron, teams like the Grizzlies and Pacers have found ways to force him to not be his LeBron self. But then there's, they can swing it around to certain players. There's counters that the Heat have built in. What are the Clippers' counters? You mean one dribble shot fake jumpers from Caron Butler?
Yeah, I mean, they had it, and you actually saw it more in the beginning of the year, and they've kind of gotten away from it. Sort of these are rotating pick and rolls, not unlike what I think Boston has run for much of the past 5 or 6 years. It looked a lot like that. But no, and I think that's the problem. I mean, the interesting thing's going to be, and we've got a long way to go, but if the Clippers justify their seed, which basically at this point means they're going to be out in the second round, and at this point, if they're a 5 seed, that means they're going to be out in the first round, is where does the coaching search go? If Chris Paul does hang around, which a lot of the word I'm hearing is that he's going to hang around. That I just think there's not a more optimal situation. Is he going to go to Atlanta? Probably not. Dallas will certainly make a run, but that he's probably happiest in Los Angeles, especially if the roster and the coaching staff can be refurbished to the extent he wants it to be. But I do think that's going to be interesting. Is he a guy who at 28 or 29, is going to be in a second round series against San Antonio for the second straight year, look across, see a Popovich and say, you know what, like I'm going to come to Jesus here, and I do need a system, and I could use a luminary in the first chair. And that's going to be interesting, and whether or not it matters, we'll see. But I just wonder at what point whispers happen where Chris Paul can't really win at the highest level, despite being the best point guard in the league. No one is challenging that.
Well, Kevin, first of all, I mean, 2-part question. The first question is, you mentioned Sniffy in a conference finals. What does a conference finals smell like? That's number one. And number two, I'm wondering, in terms of Chris Paul, do you think the reason that those whispers haven't started is because we don't care about Chris Paul? Because Chris Paul doesn't move the needle enough for people to even criticize him?
A conference final smells like sage and lavender. It's like the San Gabriel Mountains on a Sunday morning after a wildfire. Let's compose the list of people we care about. Who are the needle movers in this league? I mean, if Chris Paul's not on the list, who's on the list?
LeBron, Kobe,
LeBron,
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard, Kevin Durant, sort of. Though you will talk to people, sort of.
Westbrook, Rondo, and Blake.
Yeah, the test I've always run is, can my mom identify that name as an NBA player?
Carmelo.
And she reads us. She watches. She's a good. If the Hawks are playing well, she's into it. She is your absolutely most casual sport fan. She knows who Derek Jeter is, but she wouldn't know who. I don't know, Zach. Pick your OPS 875 shortstop in a small market. I don't know. So I just think that Chris Paul is a needle mover. I think we've got to put him in the needle moving category. Do we not?
I would say no. based on at least certainly before coming to the Clippers, whenever Beckley and we wanted to write about Chris Paul on HoopSpeak, and we knew that we were going to take a loss for doing it. We knew that we were going to take an L because those were by far the least read pieces we did. And while coming to the Clippers has helped his reputation somewhat, it's still the Clippers and not the Lakers, and he's still somewhat ignored for whatever reason.
Maybe because he hasn't won.
Right. I think so Blake Griffin is the Clippers' second best player. He doesn't seem like he's their fallback strategy. Where's like not just the evolution of Griffin's game, but more the evolution of how the Clippers use Griffin offensively? Has that changed at all since the start of last year? And we know that he's developed some post moves, that he's better in isolation, but in terms of fitting the whole puzzle together, it still seems kind of wonky.
I think Blake Griffin would agree with you. I think he'd like to be a guy that you could throw the ball into, who gets a cross screen, a deep catch, and just goes into his move inside of 2 minutes of a one possession game. I do think we live in a league where, unless you're Dirk Nowitzki and you're getting the ball at, 18 feet or beyond, big guys don't see the ball in big spots, particularly if they're 65% free throw shooters. I'd be really curious to see somebody more advanced in analytics, factor the risks reward of having Blake Griffin, who, if he does get the ball deep on the left block, can exact some serious damage, even in a late game situation, whether that's worth the risk of, making only one of two. But I think Griffin would agree with you. I think some of his unhappiness right now stems from the fact that, all the fanfare and clever campaigns in the world, aren't as just exhilarating as touching the ball inside of 2 minutes, one-on-one against a physically inferior defender. And knowing that he can make a pass out, which, I'm watching Elton Brand when he was considered the fifth best player in the league, a guy who couldn't pass out of a double team. Blake can.
Mm-hmm. Well, and isn't that part? Is that part of the Chris Paul system that Blake just doesn't get the ball like he maybe thinks he should?
You guys watch this team. Zach, what do you guys think of the Paul Griffin pick and roll? Does talk about needle moving just as an NBA junkie? Is that choreography that appeal? Is that going to be on your kind of choreography awards at the end of the year?
I think it's very sexy yet underused. Like I think it's something that really, especially with his ability to pop out now and knock down a mid-range jumper, it's something that should be run 35 times a game.
I would agree. It's certainly aesthetically wonderful. It leads to some incredible dunks. It's not unlike the Nash Amari pick and roll. Of course, Amari could actually hit that shot that gave that pick and roll a little more versatility. But I like it, and I agree with Zach's sentiment that I'd like to see more of it. Obviously, you've seen a whole lot more and observed it more closely. What is your thought on it as far as its utility and its aesthetics?
I want to see a Venn diagram of sexy and underused in all facets of American life. It's a great list. Sexy and underused.
Allison Brie and Mad Men. That's just off the top of my head.
I'm just trying to think of, low plate appearances, high sex appeal, sort of whatnot. It's interesting. I just don't think there's a refinement there. I don't think it's anyone's fault per se. You could blame it on Vinny. I think there's a sense sometimes when you get inside that Chris has a certain amount of patience for a guy. I think Chris also really, in some ways it's interesting. Blake did a really nice job as the pick and pop guy last night. The question is, how are they using him? And the pop dive ratio to me right now is really lacking, and it's I think it's getting them lower percentage looks than they should. It's not a terribly efficient offense right now. Some of that has to do with the fact that they're just not the transition machine they were. Some of it has to do with, with Griffin. And, I mean, he's not entirely healthy right now, by the way.
Yeah, and they also run. I mean, big difference between Stoudemire and Griffin is that Stoudemire almost never ran to the rim the way that Griffin does in transition. Griffin wants to put his man right under the rim every single time. I feel like they don't get that drag screen where Paul is coming at full speed and then Griffin comes over. And that's really where you get the roll. That's the hardest roll to defend. And they walk the ball up the court or Griffin goes down and seals. And so you're just not getting the repetitions of the most difficult play to defend between those two guys.
No, it's the comp for Griffin stylistically and physically was always Amari. And Amari is the best tool in that shed was always the Nash Amari drag screen early offense.
Mm-hmm.
Chris likes to do things a little more deliberately, obviously. I mean, he's still a prober as much as Nash, but in terms of pace, it's an interesting fit. I mean, they've been together, 2 years now. But I still think there are moments that are lost in translation. And I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for that glorious moment where it's more than just lobs and transition, which are comparatively easy to do if you're Chris Paul. I mean, what's difficult to do is manufacture the same sort of dynamism in the confines of a much smaller space or, in a half-court offense.
Kevin, I've got one last question before you go. This is my first time going to Washington, D.C. I'm leaving on Thursday. I'm going to get to go to a Nationals game, so I'm feeling very excited about that. I need one recommendation for a restaurant from you, and I need 2 museums from the Smithsonian that I need to hit.
I lived in D.C. 2 years, like 6 months ago, Zach. God dang it.
No, I know. I want Kevin's opinion.
Okay.
Oh, man. All right, let's start with let's start with the museum. I mean, the National Gallery and the Corcoran. Restaurants. I haven't lived there since '97. I mean, if you want lowbrow, Florida Avenue Grill was sort of the standard for soul food for a while, but I don't think it is anymore.
Who's in Oz?
I'm looking at the I'm looking at the scroll here. There was a great Korean place called Heebeen, Heeben, out in Annandale, Virginia, where all great Korean food resides in Washington. That was a place I go to a lot. This is like 15 years ago. I mean, I'm sort of Ben's Chili Bowl, Kirk Anderson. I was there. I almost went there, but I wasn't going to get Ben's Chili Bowl. But let me think about this one. The museums I'm with you on. I mean, you could do Haleo. It was sort of the first. You liked Haleo in Vegas. I mean, that was when nothing was going on around Gallery Place. I mean, there was nothing. There was no arena. There was no nothing. Like, that place kind of moved in. It was DC's first somewhat interesting restaurant in years. And that was that. Look, we even bumped Ethan off. That's how unstimulating this conversation is.
All right. I will send you some places to go because I lived there 9 months ago, Zach. And there's a bunch of new restaurants on 14th Street that you should check out. That's an easy spot. You can walk up and down and see what you like.
Yeah, because all that used to be there was like the Black Cat.
I'm so bitter about this. I cannot believe this.
That's part of the reason I asked the question.
All right.
See,
Thanks for...
What's that?
What's that, Ken?
I was like, I could do better for you in Minneapolis than I could in Washington.
All right, Kevin. Thanks a lot for coming on, man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you.
All right, take it easy. That is leading Clipperologist Kevin Arnovitz. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Arnovitz. All right, let's
man.
roll to Dagger Smash Noted. We'll get you out of here on time. My dagger is for Chris Bosh, who will again be playing without the other two of the big three. And in his only 2 games with the Heat, without those two, he has hit a 3 to either win the game or send it into overtime. And he's averaging 28 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 4 assists. So here's to Chris Bosh getting to do clutch stuff and having opportunities.
First of all, I don't like how you did research for that. You're making us look bad. That's not cool. I don't like that. This is like a hang up and listen, fully researched Dagger Smash Noted against that. Second off, Kevin really made DC look bad right there. I mean, I could just list off so many Bay Area places that you could eat at. I'd say that DC is not happy with what just happened right there. Third,
he hasn't lived there in 16 years. 16
Still.
years.
Kevin's in DC all the time, though. Kevin could tell you anything about any other city. I've experienced asking Kevin about cities and what place to go. That did not look good for DC as far as its cosmopolitan power rankings are concerned. But moving on to my smash, a smash to the critics of Stephen Curry, who now exist. This is very interesting for me. The Warriors have not been on the map, and Steph Curry has not been on the map because they're bad, or they were bad and in the wrong time zone. And now I'm seeing some sort of creeping criticism of Curry. Today there was a very positive development as far as Curry's reputation is concerned with Chris Ballard's article. But I'm not used to really defending Steph Curry to the outside world, so it's just a funny dynamic that maybe Zach can relate to, where your players or the players on the team you like aren't even really relevant enough to be rated. So this is just the debate surrounding players. I'm dealing with a transition and I'm enjoying it, frankly. But I will defend the reputation of Steph Curry against Brian Geltzeiler. I don't know. I don't have a problem with him, but he's a lot of Curry hate from that guy.
Ethan, we've talked about this. I've often felt like a lot of these opinions in a short career span have come from someone not liking them before the draft and just wanting to remain correct about a player. My noted, don't take my peck from me. I know he's a restricted free agent. I know I can't. He's such a joy to be around. I don't care if he gets $20 million a year, which is actually above the possibility. But I would have the Wolves pay anything to keep him. He's hilarious every night. He's a very good player. Last night he was asking Steensma about Easter, and the way he phrased this just killed me. And it's not going to do it justice. But the question he asked was, "Did you do the search for eggs?" Which is just fantastic. I'm getting choked up just thinking about him leaving. And the Wolf Among Wolves hoodie has a likeness of him. Buy this.
Full-on plug. Just a full-on plug for another website. All right, buy his hoodie. Sell them sweatshirts. Roger Bain, take us out. Ethan, feel free to ramble.
Oh yeah, no, I just see right there, I see, is it Draper saying that Ethiopian Oakland food is better than DC food? That might be true. I know DC has something of a Somalian food scene, but Oakland has this great Ethiopian food scene that's very interesting. On Telegraph, Koreatown sort of melds and meshes with the Ethiopian community. If I were to do a power rankings of the Ethiopian food, obviously it's got to be in Sorrow #1. That's #1. Cafe Romanat, very good. Cafe Kaluchi in the Telegraph area, also very good, but a little too lentil focused, you know? I want some good meat. I do love vegetarian food, it's good, but if I'm going to an Ethiopian place, I want some well-flavored red sauce chicken, definitely some lamb, and when you focus too much on those lentils, it can be a bit of an issue for me. So that's just why they fell in the power rankings, and I think I'm going to finally stop rambling because I thought the show was supposed to end. I'm used to talking to the music. I'm not really used to talking to no music. So I'll see you guys next time, and hopefully we'll have a great time. Have a great, not the weekend.